Good afternoon. My name is Deirdre Carmola. I work with the Ministry of Education. I'm now an SDN case manager for inclusion. And I'm really happy about this symposium. I think it's important. I think as we grow in the Cayman Islands and the participation we see here with stakeholders and the general public, I think it's really, really important. But my biggest and primary concern is as we move into our future, we talk about supporting our future and we develop in this technological age. I just want to know if there are immediate plans for further statute implementation to protect our youth that are at risk from internet shaming and naming, whether it's from peers or blogs, because my issue is that this form of community bullying is incomprehensible, and if we're saying to youth, reach out and speak up, and then they run away from a home and their name is on the internet and it never gets removed, then I don't know how we protect them. And then what happens is, if it's not them, it's their parents or an abuser that's published and linked back to them. And so my concern is, what do we say when their names are there and somebody, we talk about if you want a job or you want this, and the minute you put in the name, everything else comes up. And so how do we protect that, and what are we going to do as a community that says we are not going to participate in those blogs, and we are going to stand and advocate against this naming and shaming, because I think it's really, really important. If I got into trouble, I don't want my, as a 16-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 5-year-old being mean, or my parent being mean, because then I never live out that association, and I never get rid of the stigma. And I think that can drive our children to want to medicate or self-medicate or harm or whatever it is, because what kind of community do I live in? A community that has no forgiveness, no empathy for me, no sympathy for who I am or where I come from, or what my parent or someone else has done to me that I didn't ask to be done to me. And I think that's something that, despite all of what we do, we have to stand as a community and say, we're not going to tolerate naming and shaming.
I don't know what the answer is to that, Deirdre, in terms of what there's the legal action or the ramifications for sites that post that kind of information, or for people who comment or forward it. But I can certainly attest to some of the damage that it can do, because I'm aware of situations where people, information is gotten out and it's linked back, and people are made to feel like they can never get out from underneath that. But I also think that we've been naming and shaming in this community long before the internet. And I only have to look back to, one of my early experiences as a young clinician in the government, where, you're sitting around a table and you're looking at somebody who's coming in, and the first thing from senior people that were there to sort of guide and mentor was, well, wishes for, right? And so I think it's magnified now, but it's certainly nothing new in our community, and it starts with all of us. It starts with each and every one of us taking responsibility for our own conduct. What are we going to say around the table? What are we going to say to one another in casual conversation? And then obviously, what are we going to say when it comes to what's being recorded in the public domain?
Yeah, just to add to that, I think we do have to all take personal responsibility, and it just goes to show that we need to talk more openly about these matters and remove the stigma in regards to mental health. Because right now, mental health is something that nobody wants to admit to. They don't want to seek help, to be labeled as somebody with a mental health illness, because there is a stigma in society. And the more we talk about it, the more we can remove that stigma, the more people will feel at ease to access care. But we have to take responsibility, even in teaching our adolescents, our children and adolescents, what to post, because sometimes they are the ones who are putting the information on the internet that then gets circulated and can be something that is negatively affecting them in the future. There's another question first by Ms. Lana right here in the third row in the front, and then the lady in the middle. Is there another mic that we can have lined up? If we can have the other one lined up after Ms. Lana. Right here, third row. The second lady, can you just raise your hand again so you can get ready with the mic? Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Hi, I'm Lockhart. I just had a few thoughts just listening to the great presentations this morning, and these aren't really questions, they're just kind of ideas, I guess, if anyone wants to comment. But I was just wondering if there's been any thought to decriminalizing marijuana, and additionally, the age of majority here in Cayman being only 18 for alcohol. I kind of picked up on the inspector's thing of 26% of those youth charges were drug-related for marijuana, but then for alcohol, they weren't any sort of thing. And to my mind, they're both the same. And in fact, I think our youth these days, because of what's going on in other countries, are really questioning, what is actually better. And my stance is kind of neither. To try to teach our youth to have healthy coping mechanisms that don't add further fuel to the fire. So I just wanted to point that out, that none of us would well, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody I know, but would be unheard of, or you're a bad parent if you're sitting there, smoking a joint in front of your kids. But just to let everybody know, that they're watching us with what other mind-altering drugs we're consuming. And I just, with Terry's question, that ganja goes directly to the brain because it's fat soluble. And I don't know really the way the alcohol affects it, but maybe Dr. Lockhart, could explain that as well. But those are two things that I really noticed when I came back from Canada. There's like a healthy respect for drinking and driving. Up there it's kind of taboo, socially unacceptable. I think here, because of our tourism, Cayman's never going to take it serious. Never say never, but stuff like I went to Peru last weekend, and there was nowhere to get a soft drink. I had to have like $5 water or stand in line. I think one of the vendors had sodas, but there was kids there was no juice. Everywhere there was alcohol. So I think that's making things worse for our youth because they're witnessing all of that, and as adults we're modeling that to them. That's all I have to say.
So it was a great question. If we were to rank substances of abuse on a hierarchy, alcohol affects every chemical in the body, and in particular, every brain chemical. Alcohol is not only a depressant, but it retards movement, it changes coordination, it slows down processing speed, it damages the liver. It is an extremely toxic poison that we take in to get the poisonous effect, which makes us feel relaxed or whatever the phrase may be. Marijuana is a chemical that has medicinal benefits. My personal view is that it should be decriminalized. We should not be arresting young kids for possession. We should get them treatment. I'm not saying they should use it or we should encourage the use. Marijuana has many components to it, over 500 active chemicals. 100 of them are psychoactive. Out of that 100, there's several that have significant medicinal benefits that we're seeing. Reducing seizures, pain control, much safer than the opiates people are given right now for pain management as we speak in the hospital. The problem is that it has become villainized, it's being abused. That's something else that we really need to look at. Because I feel that if it is decriminalized, we could actually reduce the use by the youth. It would be managed, it would be sold and licensed for use. Those that do abuse it would then be able to be treated rather than just get into the criminal system, as the inspector said. The police agree with that. We've had commissioners here in the past that have also had that same approach. So I hear what you're saying. I'm not endorsing or advocating for the youth to use any type of substance, but we also have to be mature in terms of how we address and look at what can be medicinal, and the best ways of actually controlling and managing these. Keeping it in the criminal domain is not going to reduce the usage. And as you said, Dr. Lana, with the trends internationally now, we're actually seeing higher use, higher strains of marijuana that have higher THC levels, which is the most effective chemical, being used by younger students. In Christmas time, when students are coming back from the holidays, we see an increase in the hospital of admissions, psychotic type reactions due to the strain of cannabis that's now coming back. I won't even go off on the synthetic cannabis that's being made in labs that cause outward psychosis, that cause suicide, that cause, a lot of criminal type behaviors, but we'll leave it there.
But I think, Dr. Lockhart, I think it's important because I've seen definitely a difference in the conversation amongst the youth today as well, because we have the law that has said that there can be marijuana that can be accessed by a prescription. So it's legal now for medicinal purposes. And I think the message amongst the youth are probably in the wider community as well is pretty mixed, because they don't understand the difference between that one component that you just mentioned, the THC, which causes the hallucinogenic effects, and the fact that there are synthetic components that they perhaps don't know about that is being added to marijuana, and that's where the problem lies. So I think that the more they understand, they truly understand what's going on with marijuana, the better, because it's not just marijuana. There's various types and strains of it that can be produced in around.
Just a quick thing about that to show you. So what's happening now, because cannabis, which is a proper term, is illegal, you're fueling the criminal market to produce a stronger and more potent form of the drug. So then they do not have any interest in the CBD component. They want the THC to be as high as possible. High levels of THC actually affect areas of the brain that are related to processing and increasing dopamine that can cause psychotic type reactions, seeing, hearing things. What happens right now, we have a young person right now as we speak that goes into the emergency room that's having an acute effect from a strong strain of cannabis. The way that we treat them is by giving them other medications to sedate them, things like the benzodiazepines or Valium and diazepam and so forth. Whereas if we would decriminalize and be able to put a more medicinal and medical approach to treatment, we would be able to give them things like CBD, which is another component of the same cannabis plant that we're now showing that counteracts the THC effects without side effects.
Lizzette, in terms of the comment in regards to where we have a lot of our youth justice matters, the drug-related stats are quite significant. We have kept over 15 years of data from the department's side, and we have seen the steady progression over the years in terms of usage of substances, and of course, marijuana being one of them. In terms of what are we doing as a department to address things differently, under our youth justice team, we're looking at developing what we call our youth diversion program. And we've had some vibrant discussions so far with key stakeholders, and we'll be reaching out to HSA as one of our key stakeholders as well. But in terms of, again, from a policing perspective, from a court's perspective, from the Director of Public Prosecution's office, we are saying that first-time offenses for young people with possession or usage of marijuana, why are we carrying them through the justice system when, as Dr. Lockhart said, and looking at the various stats and reasons why these children are using drugs, it's because of some other underlying issue. And if we don't address that firsthand, and we just say, okay, well, you're really bad and you're committed a crime, and now you're going through the court system, and you don't put those preventative programs in place, all you're now doing again is creating that cycle of coming through the justice system for them to graduate into the adult prison system. So we're definitely looking at developing a very vibrant diversion program on the various levels. Because of course there are going to be some matters that you have to take through the court process, but if at all possible, you start with what is the most limited in terms of actually carrying a child or children through that process and dealing with the issue as it presents itself first.
I think also just, this is a totally side comment, but as we were talking, I was just thinking about, I don't remember if it was Dr. Lamb or Dr. Brandon had the slides, that was looking at racism as a risk factor. And one of the things that I think our young people, particularly our Canadian young people, are keenly aware of is often the bias in the court system and the bias in the application of the law as it relates to their behavior. And I'm part of a local football club, and one of the things that was sort of a hot topic recently was the recent situation with the performer who had come on island and then was caught with some marijuana and let go and then kind of made a joke about it on social media. And the fundamental comment was, let that had been me, they would have not let me go. I would have been sitting in Northwood right now. And these are our young boys, and I've heard from the different presenters talk about how our young Canadian men are at risk. And they're at risk sometimes because there are those innate biases in our society that we have to start talking about as it relates to mental illness. Because we can't talk about mental illness if we're not going to look at some of those social biases that lead people to feel disenfranchised, that lead people to feel less than in our community.
Just a couple of facts I want to throw in. One being in regards to alcohol in the brain. In all substances, let me start there, all substances, they're metabolized by the liver. The liver breaks down anything we consume. The human liver is not fully developed in a human being until around 20 or 21 years of age. So for a 16, 17-year-old who's drinking alcohol or taking any substance, including prescribed medications, it has to be looked at very differently. They have an undeveloped liver. I know some communities that have thought about the idea of if an adult gives adolescent alcohol, it could be charged with child abuse. It's pretty severe. It's just the way some thinking is going. The second one is about the human brain. The human brain is not fully developed until around the age of 22, 23 years of age. So to be giving marijuana or allowing marijuana to be smoked by youngsters, and the brain isn't even developed yet, the impact is much more severe than on an adult. And there's not been enough research done, is probably the key thing in regards to marijuana, especially long-term effects. They haven't researched somebody who smoked it for 20 or 25 years. The other thing I'll mention quickly, it's hard to accept this. The Cayman Islands is one of only 3 countries in the entire world that still has a .10 limit on alcohol driving a car. Most have gone to 08 or even 06. So we have a real tolerance here in regards to alcohol abuse.
Thank you very much. Now we are running out of time, but I did promise the lady who has the mic that she was going to be able to ask her question. So she would be the one with the final question, and then you want to respond to. Okay. So the lady who's standing, please. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lynn, and I just want to ask a question about how, as you know, Dr. Lockhart with the Mental Health Commission and other people that are involved in the industry that supports mental health and well-being in the Cayman Islands, how you connect culture with all of this. And the reason I'm asking is because culture strongly, research strongly suggests that culture will often influence help-seeking behavior. And considering the fact that the church is such a big thing, it's an important part of a lot of people's lives here in the Cayman Islands, I want to know, have any relationships been built with any churches? Is there a referral system in place regarding pastors? Have pastors also been taught about people that are people that are demonstrating help-seeking behavior and what can be done to support them?
Actually, I can respond to that. Actually, you made a very, very good point, and that's something that the Panton Foundation has done. We have engaged with the churches very early on in the forming of the foundation, and we have reached out and we've gone to a number of the churches and done presentations. A couple of these pastors were in the audience this morning that we've been engaging with. But you're right, that that is a very, very strong connection to the community and is an avenue for us to get access to our youth and our parents, and then to have them assist us, to partner with us in order to reach our youth in the community. Very, very good point. Final question from the lady in the front.
Good afternoon. My name is Charmaine McGowan. I'm a board member of the Panton Foundation. My question is for Natalie. And I want to first of all applaud the work that you're doing in the Taya Lounge for the at-youth risk, because I know this segment of our population, these children don't have parents who advocate for them. They're looking for places to find love, to find acceptance. They found it in the right place with the Taya Lounge, and I do want to applaud you guys for your work. Just wanted to get some feedback from you and all of us to understand, when you are identifying mental health risks with the children that come, and do you get the same type of 5 or 6 kids that come 4 nights a week? I just want to get a bit of information from you on that. And then how are you finding, without parental support and advocacy, referring these children that do have mental health needs? How do you handle that?
Thank you so much, Charmaine. For commending us. I really think that with the teams at Taya Lounge, that's why I have a specific curriculum that I've developed, because I'm having the same teams come every single night, and it's 14 to 21, so we can really be there to impact them and plant that seed, like I said before. It takes a long time to change. It could take a while to change behaviors, just like the behavior of the teens coming, saying, I'm going to box themselves. The same teens that come, they have all the issues. They have the issues of fighting. They have the issues of being in jail. Most of them do smoke marijuana on a daily basis, and they'll come talk to me about that. And I think that's the important thing, is talking to them and letting them talk about. I don't say, well, why did you smoke? You're not supposed to do that. What do you think is going to happen after that? What we say, I said, well, what happened that day? Tell me about your day. What's going on? Oh, well, my teacher did this, did that. So I just left. I punched a wall and I left. And that's it. And so then we just talk about healthy coping skills, and it's a conversation. I value the volunteers, everyone at the crisis center, and my teams that are a part of the program. It's not me, it's them. And most of the time, they do the work for me. They support each other because they get respected. And I feel like most of the time, they don't have respect by anyone, and so they're not going to respect others. And that's, I think, just creating that basic need of the food and the safety. We do have food, we love to cook, and Wi-Fi. I think I get into Wi-Fi, but so those are some of the little things that we do. And if they want to do something, all right, I'll show them how to do it. One time, one of the teams, oh, it's Natalie. What is a pickle? How do you make a pickle? I said, well, I don't know. Let's look it up together. It's just someone listening to them. We made pickles, and they tasted delicious. And just giving them the tools that they're going to need to be members of the community, to be successful adults, because they are our future. And we want to make sure that they're being heard, because they have a lot more to say than you think they do. And it's positive. They surprise me every night. Even last night, they wanted to have a debate. And so you know what we talked about? That violence is not the answer. And I got to say violence is not the answer. We talked about do women belong in the kitchen? I got them to say no. And I wasn't even saying it. They were saying it with each other. And we were having a conversation. So like I said, I think it's just important to listen and to respect them. As far as referrals, it is a lot of work, but I have an amazing staff of volunteers and interns, and I'm teaching people to help others, because we want to plant the seed. And I do believe that we can make this a violence-free island. This is a small island. If we all go outside that door and listen to our youth and our future, it will change for the positive.
Obviously, you can tell that the conversation's just started. We could continue on and on this evening, right? But there are other speakers that are waiting to come on. And I'm going to hand it back over now to Ms. Jennifer Ahern, our MC, but not before I thank our wonderful panelists. Thank you all very much.
And I think we need to give Ms. Lizzette a round of applause. She did a great job. And yes, a huge thank you to all of our panel members and to all of you with your questions and your comments. I think that was some really good discussion that we just had. So we're moving on to the next chapter, which is chapter 5. And the title of chapter 5 is Writing Your Next Chapter. And here to speak on that, we have Ms. Jada Ramoon, who is a mental health advocate. She is a passionate mental health advocate. Having suffered with anxiety and depression through her mid-teenage years, she's made it her goal to advocate for this platform. She notes that writing, pageantry, friends, and family have been a big source of support in her growth and development. Having volunteered with not-for-profits like the Alex Panton Foundation, through Cayman Islands Imperial Beauties team, Jada has developed a greater insight into mental health issues now and how taboo the topic still is here in the Cayman Islands. Jada's aim is to continue to share her story with others in order to bring awareness and support to those dealing with anxiety and depression, both locally and globally. Jada is going to talk to us about writing your next chapter. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Jada Ramoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. As you heard, my name is Jada Ramoon, and I can say that I am someone who has suffered with anxiety and depression, and I'm happy to say that I have found a way to overcome that. I want to thank the Alex Panton Foundation, first of all, for giving me the opportunity to speak to all of you today and what I've dealt with in my past. The theme today is addressing our past and supporting our future. And this basically ties in with what I'm going to be speaking on today. Writing your next chapter. You'll hear the different chapters in my life and where I am now. So here's writing your next chapter. Many nights I've stayed awake and I've wondered what's wrong with me. Why does no one seem to care? I've lost count of how many times I've cried myself to sleep because I never thought that things would get easier or better. I've questioned my purpose here on earth, and I wondered, would anyone even miss me if I wasn't here? I was a vivacious and happy teenager, living my life to the fullest. I was in my final year of high school, on the track team, and I had tons of friends. That changed one night, and let me tell you, I've never had any issues with anxiety or depression before that night, but that just goes to show, even though you're not suffering with it in the past, it all builds up and eventually it just crashes on you like a ton of bricks. So I walked into my parents' room and I told them that I was having difficulty breathing. Immediately my mom rushed me to the hospital, and in that moment I felt everything caving in. What I didn't understand was my vitals were normal according to doctors, and I was fine physically on the outside, but inside, I felt horrible. I didn't feel like myself. I had to be injected with medications to calm me down because I was freaking myself out and raising my heart rate. That night, the doctor told me I had a panic attack. I couldn't understand why, because I've never had one before, and I never felt this way. Who knew that school could have such a negative impact or such a strong impact on one's mental health? I thought they would have eventually subsided, but they got worse and I lost myself. I was always worrying about how am I affecting those around me who have to put up with me. This caused my anxiety because of the constant worrying. With the worrying came beating myself up. This led to my depression. Everyone around me was so affected, and trust me, I tried to be Jada again, but I just couldn't find her. I looked in the mirror and I didn't recognize myself. I felt that I was literally a zombie. I stayed in bed on the weekends, I didn't eat, I didn't converse with anyone. I was even afraid to be at home alone sometimes because this is where most of my attacks took place. At that point, I was at my lowest, and I thought about hurting myself numerous amounts of times, but something always told me not to go through with it. It got to the point where my mom and dad arranged meetings with the pastor to try to get me back on track. Sure, religion helped me through it because without God, nothing is possible. But I felt in myself this was something I had to deal with, and to be honest, the top of my dresser had medication scattered all over it. I contemplated many times on whether I needed them or not. I could not bring myself to take them. They made me feel so horrible and out of it. I know medications are a big help, and I do encourage those who have no other options to take them to be their true healthy self. But it wasn't for me. I wanted to talk to someone, but I couldn't. I thought it would be a phase and I would just grow out of it. Little did I know that if anxiety and depression is not taken care of and nipped as soon as possible, the long-term effects are horrible. Sometimes I thought, my parents were afraid to leave me alone because they believed I would hurt myself. I did have scary thoughts, but as I said, I could never bring myself to do it. This is when I realized, okay, I do have control of my thoughts and my actions. This is where my turnaround started. I felt I had had enough. I spoke with my school counselor, who told me to tell my parents about the severity of my anxiety and my depression. I did that, and my mom found someone for me to speak to, and I saw her twice a week. She made me realize things about myself that I never even knew I could do. Dr. Hawkins was a big help on my road to recovery, and she is here today. The more she found out about me, and when we got to the reasons of why I was feeling the way I did, she gave me exercises, things to do to relax and that my brain knew that I was in control and that everything was fine. But it didn't help right away because I wanted it to work as soon as I started speaking with her. Even though my panic attacks did slowly go away and I was in more control of my anxiety, I didn't feel I was going at the pace I wanted to, and my depression still lingered. I couldn't understand how much more of this could one 17-year-old take. I was too young to be dealing with this type of stress, and I just needed it all to stop. I missed running, my old laugh, though I used to smile and feel. Everything I had to get used to, it was different for me, you know? I had to get used to the new Jada. But how? How could I adjust to someone that I didn't even know? Failure